Well, hey, good morning. Welcome to Fern Creek. Glad you're here with us this morning as we continue in this apologetic series that we call Solid. And today we're talking about how do I know there is a God? And just to let you know, I forgot to mention it last week, but something to mark on your calendars. If God pulls your heartstrings and you become interested in apologetics and you want to dive deeper, there's a conference coming to Fern Creek, and we have a connection with one of our members, Michael Kitt. It's called the Reveal Conference. That's coming to Fern Creek on October 22nd. It's a Saturday. Doors will open about 8 a.m. and the conference starts at 9 a.m. There's a lunch break, Chick-fil-A. Yeah, Chick-fil-A. Jesus chicken on a Saturday, right before it's closed on a Sunday. That's big news. And then there's some great speakers. Sean McDowell and Mike Lacona are coming and speaking. And it's free, totally free. No cost to you, just costs your time. And, right, I guess you could call it the cost of discipleship. That was, sorry, church joke. Anyways, nobody laughed. It's a good book if you haven't read it, Cost of Discipleship. But October 22nd, Reveal Conference, coming to Fern Creek. Doors open at 8. Conference starts at 9 a.m. that day. Also, some things to keep in mind. Connect signups are out at the event table today. We've been talking about this group. It's an 8-week Wednesday night experience starting this Wednesday night at 6:30. Connect with some new believers, some new members here at Fern Creek, and see what group life is really like here at Fern Creek Christian Church. And then we haven't even announced it yet, but on Facebook, the event, numbers-wise, is already almost twice the size of what it was last year. Trunk or Treat is back on a Sunday this year, October 30th. From 5 to 8 here in our parking lot. It's going to be crazy. And we need lots of candy. We need a ton of candy. So October 30th, bring in candy before then. We have white bins in the lobby towards the office glass doors. Bring in as much candy as you could bring it. We would love that. And this is an event, man, if you want to sign up to decorate your car, man, the Altmans always have a great car. But if you want to sign up to decorate your car and hand out candy, you're welcome to do that too. And that's all kind of in that info desk area if you want to learn more about that. But let's go ahead, stand, meet one another, and then we'll get started with worship.
In the sweet shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet, sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet, sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore.
Yeah. Now, last week we talked about the voice of truth that we hear. Let's worship Him this morning. What would I do to have the kind of faith it takes to climb out of this boat of me unto the crashing waves, to step outside my comfort zone into the realm of the unknown where Jesus is, and He's holding out His hand, but the waves are calling out my name and they laugh at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The waves that keep on telling me time and time again, boy, you never win. You never win. Come on. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says this is for my glory. And all the voices calling out to me. Oh, I would choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. What would I do to have the kind of strength it takes to stand before a giant with just a sling and a stone, surrounded by the sound of 1,000 warriors shaking in their armor, wishing they'd have had the strength to stand, but the giant's calling out my name and it laughs at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The giant keeps on telling me time and time again, boy, you'll never win. Oh, you'll never win. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says this is for my glory. Of all the voices calling out to me, oh, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. Scorpions can by its side to put the giant on the ground. When the waves and the seas go high, the time of them will go down. I was born with the wings of eagles when I stopped there, listening to the sound of Jesus singing over me. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, oh, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth.
Before the throne of God above, I have a strong and perfect plea, a great high priest whose name is love, whoever lives and pleads for me.
My name is graven on His hand. that even though we have an enemy, that there is truth in Jesus. And Lord, may we come to know more of you today. As we look at your creation, as we look at the world around us, we can see evidence of you. We see your fingerprint in the people and in creation around us. And I pray that today we would be led to greater faith because of how we reason for truth. Lord, I just pray that we become disciples because of the truth that we know. And that as we learn and as we grow in faith, that we would lead others to you as well. Lord, this information, we don't just want to store it for ourselves, but we want to share it with the world around us so that they worship the God that we worship. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. You guys can grab a seat.
For in him all things were created,
things in heaven and on earth,
visible and invisible.
whether thrones or powers
or rulers or authorities.
All things have been created through him and for him.
He is before all things,
and in him all things hold together.
Well, hey, good morning, Fern Creek. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your weekend with us. Hey, before we get into the message today, I want to introduce you to a ton of people who last week transferred their membership. Again, God continues to add to our family. So I'm just going to introduce, we had 7 transfers last week. So let me introduce you to everybody. Paul and Linda Schneider, Kay and Jerry Schooling, Donna Hyde, Larry Menifee, who is my uncle, and I'm just so thrilled to have family kind of coming to Fern Creek. And then I want to introduce you to Christy Warren. Christy is transferred her membership. Christy's up in Ohio, and she wanted to join the Fern Creek family. She supports the ministry, and so I know she's watching today. So on the count of 3, let's say, hi, Christy. 1, 2, 3, hi, Christy. So we've got people all over the place who are linking arms with Fern Creek, and so God continues to be on the move, and we're thankful for a church that always has an open seat at the table. So, hey, I also want to, before we get into the message, one of the things that we hold dear at Fern Creek is we want this to be a family. And part of that is, coming into a new church, there's a period of time where you just maybe want to sit in the back and take things in, and you're kind of checking out, hey, is this a place that I really want to invest my life in? And then at some point you kind of go like, I think I want to see a little bit more. And we want to know you, we want to serve you, serve with you, love you, have you love us. And one of the ways we do that is we do smaller groups. We do life together. We call them life groups. And we have all kinds of groups that meet not only on Sunday morning, but throughout the week. And if one of the hardest things is to take that first step to say, well, how do I find a smaller group? Well, Rich and I this Wednesday night are going to start a kind of an introductory life group. You want to see what life groups are like? Come join Rich and I on Wednesday night. It's only 8 weeks long. We study for 2 weeks, we serve together 1 week out of the month, and then we just have a party 1 week out of the month. That's kind of our rhythm. And at the end of 8 weeks, there is no all right, sign on the dotted line to keep going. You can say, hey, I like that, I didn't like that. No commitment, just an 8-week commitment. And so again, we would love to give you a little, if you're not in a group, we'd love to meet you starting this Wednesday night for 8 weeks. So sign up. There's a little round table out there with it underneath the TV screen. And we would love to spend the next 8 weeks kind of unpacking what a life group could look like for you. So again, welcome to week 2 of a series that we're calling Solid. And in this series, what we're doing is we're dipping our toe into a field of study called apologetics. And in apologetics, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, why do I believe what I believe? This is what I believe. Why do I believe it? And I want to be able to articulate that. So apologetics is how we defend the faith, giving a logical, well thought out reason for the hope we have in Jesus Christ. Now, why we do that is because we're encouraged to do that in the Scripture. One of the passages that we'll keep coming back to over and over again is 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. Look at it again. Through the Apostle Peter, God is telling every one of us, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you, to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and with respect, keeping a clear conscience. So that's written to every believer. So if anyone ever asks me a question about my faith, if anyone ever says to me, Craig, why do you believe X? I'm called to do one thing and only one thing. What I'm called to do is to give a reason. I'm called to give an answer. I am not called to prove. I am not called to win. I am simply called to give an answer, to give a reason, and to do it with gentleness and with respect. Now, as we talk about answering questions, there's lots of ways you can answer a question, right? I mean, somebody asks you a question, you can answer in lots of different ways. Somebody says to you, why do you believe there's a God? Well, you could do this. You could say, I've been waiting for this. I've studied. I've prepared. I believe there's a God just because I believes it. I feels it in my heart. My mama, it was good enough for her, and it's good enough for me, and that's why I believe. Now, is that an answer? It is an answer. It is a response, but maybe, it doesn't fit that person, right? I mean, maybe it fits you, but here's what I want to suggest. Maybe there are other answers. Maybe there are other ways to respond that might be a little bit more substantial, right? Based upon evidence. And that's what apologetics does. It gives us some tools that we can put in our toolbox. So again, when someone asks us a question, we might be a little more prepared to answer, in a different kind of way. So I want to get to the question today. Why do you believe there's a God? All right, somebody asked me, Craig, why do you believe there's a God? I want to tell you my answer to that. Now, let's think about the question. Is there a God? Now, turn to your neighbor. There are only two ways you can answer that. What are the two ways? Is there a God? It's either yes or... Okay, now somebody might say, well, there's another answer, bald-headed preacher man. I don't know. Maybe. Well, that's not really an adequate answer. Because even though my lack of knowledge, or my limited understanding doesn't impact reality. So just because I don't know, that doesn't mean it's unknowable. When you ask the question, is there a God? Again, there's only two answers. Yes, there is, or no, there isn't. So today, I want to give you the reason for the hope I have. I'm not here today to win you, to convince you, to prove to you. I just want to give you the reason for the hope I have. I want to tell you why I believe the evidence points to yes, there is a God. Now, if there were a God, let's just start there. If there were a God, you would expect that there should be some evidence for that. Like if there were a God, he would probably want to be known, right? Or maybe you ought to be able to look around and say, is there any evidence that we can gather that would tip the scale to say, well, yeah, there is. And I think this is the question that the Apostle Paul asked in Romans chapter 1, verse 20. Listen to what Paul said. He said, since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power, his divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. Paul makes this brilliant statement where he says, open your eye. You want to know if there's a God? Open your eyes. Just look around. Look up at the stars. Watch the animals. Look at creation. And if you look, you will be able to see the fingerprints of God just by simply observing what he's created. Now, Paul wrote that over 2,000 years ago. And we would say today, his knowledge, his ability to see the world was so limited, and it is true. Like we sit today, 2,000 years, think of the technological advancements that we have that Paul had no access to with a microscope. We can see into a cell, something that Paul had no comprehension about. With a telescope, we can see galaxies that he couldn't even see. So what has 2,000 years of technological advancement, what has it done for us? Well, it's done exactly what the Apostle Paul said. God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, his divine nature are even more clearly seen. So we arrive at the same conclusion that Paul wrote about 2,000 years ago. With all the technology we have, we see God better. We see God more clearly through our technological advancements. Let me break this down. Why do I believe there's a God? Well, science has proven that the universe is expanding. The universe is, go back to what Paul said. Paul said, since the creation of the world, Paul said that the universe was not eternal. The universe is created. The universe wasn't, and then bam, the universe came into existence. That is an opinion that up until 1920, most scientists would have laughed at, would have ridiculed. Because up until 1920, most scientists said that the earth was eternal. The earth was static. It's always been. And then a guy, do you know this guy, Albert Einstein? He even believed that. Einstein bought this idea that the universe was just eternal. Didn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end, it's just there. And he began working on this formula. But the problem was the formula kept coming back saying, no, the universe is expanding. And Einstein didn't like that. So Einstein fudged his formula. Did you know this? He fudged his formula. He put in something he called the cosmological constant, an arbitrary force to counteract the force of the universe's expansion according to his formula. It was the greatest, and he was called on it. And he finally had to admit, and he says it was the greatest mistake of his entire career. The universe, the formula said, was expanding. And maybe what helped him was in 1931, he took a trip to an observatory in Mount Wilson Observatory. He met a guy named Edward Hubble, and Hubble was looking into outer space with a 100-inch telescope, biggest telescope we'd ever built at that point. And Hubble was able to see things that no human being had ever seen before, and what he saw was amazing. Hubble was able to look into galaxies that we could never see. And he discovered that galaxies were moving farther away from us. The ones closest to us were moving slowly away. The ones farther away from us were moving fast in all directions. The universe was expanding. So at that point, man, it was a documented, proven fact that the universe was indeed expanding in all directions. And as moving as that was, what that meant was if the universe is growing out in time, if you rewind the tape, you go, we're looking far, the farther out we look, we're looking farther back in time. Well, if you rewind the tape and you bring those galaxies back, They get closer and closer and closer and closer together until you come down to this single moment of what? Beginning. And so Hubble begins this whole thing with science that, man, the universe has not been eternal. The universe is expanding, which means it had to have a beginning. Well, consider the second law of thermodynamics. Let's talk about this scientific law. Second law of thermodynamics states that energy within a closed system will always degrade. How many coffee drinkers do we have? Any coffee drinkers? You know the second law of thermodynamics. You go and fill your coffee mug up and it's hot. It's a hot cup of joe, and you sit that coffee cup down and you walk away. A few hours later, is it still hot? No, the energy degrades. The hotness, the energy, it degrades, and now it's just cold. So that's the law of entropy. That's the law of degradation, right? You look at a flashlight. You turn a flashlight on, and over a series of days and maybe weeks and maybe a month, that charge in the battery does what? It degrades. It loses its charge. If you don't believe that things degrade, that things wear out, look in the mirror. If you're over 50, you know the law of degradation. Let me prove it to you. I've done this before, but let me do it with you again. Let me show you a picture of my high school graduating photo. That's me. Okay, I've gained a few pounds. Now let me show you my real high school photos. Look at the law of degradation. So listen, when I go back in time and I look at my younger self, man, I see a body that's falling apart, a body that is winding down. I've got wrinkles, my eyes are bad, I'm bow-legged, I can grow hair in my nose and my ears, but not on top of my head. I am wearing out, and it only gets worse. Here's what I'm going to look like at 85, right there, right? So look at it all together. Next slide. Degradation. The law of entropy. Things wear out. You know that's the law, right? So think about creation. Creation works the exact same way. Our universe is losing energy. It's winding down. At some point in time, all of the energy will be gone. That means the universe cannot be infinitely old. One can only conclude that the universe had a beginning, had this moment, and then everything's winding down. Consider the law of motion. The law of motion says an object, matter, it will stay at rest until something puts it into motion. You know this to be true. A chair cannot slide itself. A car cannot propel itself. A ball cannot roll itself. Someone or something has to put it into motion. Our earth is spinning at 67,000 miles per hour. Our Milky Way galaxy is moving into space at 448,000 miles per hour. And the question becomes, well, what propelled it? What put it in motion? And scientists say, we know what propelled it. We know what put it into motion. It was the Big Bang. The Big Bang propelled it. The Big Bang started it. It was the Big Bang. My only question is, who rang the Big Bang? Right? Who lit that fuse? What was that cause? And science has no natural explanation. There's no natural explanation for the beginning. You want to know why? There can't be. There is no natural explanation. There's a supernatural explanation, but there's no natural explanation. And let me just go a little farther with this. Listen, time, matter, and space all have to come into existence in the same second. They can't evolve. They all have to be at the same moment, and let me prove it to you. If all you had were time and space, you have no material, you have no matter, you would still have nothing. There's nothing there. You just have time and space, you still have nothing. If all you have are space and matter, you don't have time, when would you put it? If all you had were time and matter, but you don't have space, where would you put it? So do you understand? Time, matter, and space must come at the same moment or you don't have anything. It doesn't work. And so there's no natural explanation. You can't naturally say how that happened. The only possible conclusion that you can come to is there's something outside of time. There's someone beyond the dimension of space. There's someone that comes before matter that has to put that into motion. And my friends, I would just say it has to be God. One of the reasons for the hope I have, one of the reasons I believe that there is a God is that there was a beginning. And as Christians, we've known this. Did you know of all the sacred books that are out there, all of the religions that are out there, the Bible is the only one that claims this. Look at Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There must be an unmoved mover, an uncaused cause, someone beyond space, time, and matter that kicks it into gear. And that's what the Bible teaches. Look at Colossians chapter 1, verse 16. For by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers, rulers or authorities, all things were created by him and for him. Watch this. He is what? Before all things, and in him all things hold together. I just say to you, if the universe had a beginning, and we know scientifically it's been proven that it does, something caused that. Someone outside of that kicked that into motion. And again, that's one reason I believe there's a God. Well, let's keep looking as we look around the world and look around our universe. Are there any other reasons, any other explanations for is there a God? I believe there is. Let me give you an argument from design. When you look at the world, you look at your body, you look at the universe, you don't see randomness. You see structure, you see order, you see design. Let me give you one of the hundreds of designs that we see in the natural world. Our little planet, I want you to consider outer space for a minute. Our little planet floats like a grain of sand in an ocean of outer space. I mean, when you think about the universe, it's all outer space. Have you ever thought about this? Earth floats like a little grain of sand in this vast ocean that we call outer space. Now, do you understand how harsh, how unforgiving, how uninhabitable the ocean of space actually is? I mean, life is not supported naturally in outer space. You will never see a meteor zipping through space with people on it going, woohoo, let's barbecue. No. The harshness of outer space is mind-blowing. Outer space is a total vacuum. Total vacuum, no oxygen. If you were exposed, what would happen to you if you were just exposed to the sea of outer space? Well, number one, you'd suffocate because there's no oxygen in outer space. The temperature in outer space is negative 454 degrees Fahrenheit. If you and I were exposed to outer space, our bodies would swell twice the size of our normal body. Do you know why it swells twice the size? Because all the liquid in your body would begin to bubble. He'd be like a huge Dr. Pepper, right? When you open the top, you would just you wouldn't explode, but your skin would expand twice the size because your insides are going to bubble. If you were facing the sun, or even if you weren't, if you had access to the sun, the high UV radiation and gamma rays would cook you. Your skin would crackle, and you would be exposed to the harshness of the sun, and your skin would just peel and fry. So if you were exposed to outer space, you'd be a fried, sunburnt, suffocated mutant freezing to death. What I'm showing you is there's no way life can be sustained in the vacuum of space. That is why we've had to do what? We've had to design spaceships. That is why, to keep people alive in outer space, we got to put them in special suits that will protect them, that will sustain them in the harshness and the unforgivingness of outer space. We've had people at NASA who've worked for decades, years building these ships and building these suits, creating these systems to keep people alive in this harshness of space. So let me just say, we're in the ocean of space. And all of a sudden we come across an alien spacecraft. We come across a rocket. And we look and we go, look at this thing. Look at this thing that's created this. It supports life, and we see design. It's got the right systems. It's got wires and buttons and thrusters and seals and metal and rivets. What would we say? Would we look at that craft? Would we look at that rocket? Would we look at that spaceship and we would say, man, it just happened. Over billions of years, I guess, metal and meteors smashed together and wires came together and it pressurized just right, and it just randomly, this ship randomly put itself together. And then that doesn't even explain how life sustained itself inside, how life originates on the inside. It would be crazy for anyone to come across a craft like that and to say, well, it just kind of happened. So I propose to you. We live on a rock, traveling through a vacuum of lifeless space at 67,000 miles per hour. And I would propose that our Earth is a ship, is a craft that is keeping us alive. And when you look at our planet, it is specifically tweaked, beautifully engineered to sustain life in a system, in a vacuum of space that threatens life. Let me give you a few things to consider. Our Earth, oxygen on Earth comprises 21% of the atmosphere. If it composed 25%, if it was only 4% more, fires would erupt on this planet spontaneously. If oxygen levels were 15%, 6% lower, man, we would suffocate. No other planet we ever discovered comes close to having the kind of oxygen levels needed to sustain life. Our planet orbits the sun. It's a perfect distance away from the sun. It only changes its orbit 1/8 of an inch every 18 miles. It stays on this orbit, perfect orbit, only varying 1/8 of an inch every 18 miles. If we departed 1/9 of an inch, we would come too close to the sun and we'd all burn up. If we departed 1/10 of an inch, we get too far away from the sun and we would freeze to death. It's perfect. The gravitational forces on Earth, if they were only altered by that percent, one with all of those zeros in front of it, 37 zeros, man, the sun would not exist, and neither would we. If Jupiter were not in its current position, The Earth would be bombarded by space material. Jupiter's orbit is a must. It's like this giant space vacuum that takes all the debris. If the thickness of the Earth's crust were any greater or any lesser, life could not exist. If the Earth's tilt of 23.5 degrees were altered ever so slightly, temperatures could not sustain life. What I'm saying to you is the Earth is just the right distance from the sun. It's exactly the right distance from the moon. It's exactly the right diameter, exactly the right atmospheric pressure. It has exactly the right tilt, exactly the right amount of oceanic water. It's exactly the right weight, exactly the right mass. We see an Earth finely engineered, finely tuned, floating through this vacuum of space that resists life, but this thing, man, keeps life going. And that's just the ship. We haven't even talked about how life originates inside the ship. I'm just saying to you, if you were in outer space and you saw a spaceship and you saw life in that spaceship, it would be ridiculous for you to say, well, that just happened. There would have to be intelligence. There would be, if we discovered UFOs, no one would say, well, that just randomly happened. No, that's intelligent life. And that's what I'm saying to you. We are told that God specifically created the earth. He designed it. He fashioned it to be inhabited by people that he would create. There's a guy named Hugh Ross, a creationist. He's an astrophysicist, but a creationist. He said there were 122 constants needed for human life to be found just by chance. So Ross calculated the odds. What are the odds of finding that anywhere in the universe? He said 10 to the 138th power. 10 with 138 zeros behind it. This many requirements happening just by chance. He said if that were put before a scientist today, what are the odds of finding that? Scientists would laugh and say it's ridiculous, it's ludicrous. So friends, listen, I believe there's a God because I see design. A spider's web came from a spider. A painting came from a painter. A building came from a builder. And creation comes from a creator. So I see the universe had a beginning. I see the universe has design. We got time for one more. Another reason for the hope I have. Another reason why I think there's a God. Morality. Morality is an evidence in my book for the existence of God. Now, you can't weigh right or wrong. It's not something that you can dissect on a table. It's not something you can see under a microscope. But even though you can't see right or wrong, even though you can't weigh right or wrong, you know that some things are right and you know some things are wrong. Not only do you know it, all of humanity knows it. There are absolute rights and absolute wrongs. It's wrong for people everywhere, anywhere, at all times, at all places, to torture an innocent child. Now people do it, but people would say that is wrong. We all would agree on that. In every culture that's ever lived, courage is valued more than cowardice. In every civilization, love is better than hate. Now, 99.5% of people believe that. I'm sure there's some people who don't believe that, but just because there's a fraction, a minority, that there is this universal understanding of what is right and what is wrong. And the question becomes, well, where does that come from? How did we get that? I'll tell you where it doesn't come from: evolution. It doesn't come from there. What does evolution teach us? Survival of the fittest. Do what you can to whoever you can in order for your survival. So morality doesn't stem from evolution. Where does it come from? Well, I think an absolute morality comes from a moral God. And that's what the Bible would teach us. Look at Genesis chapter 1. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on earth, the small animals that scurry along the ground." So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. This is of utmost importance. The Bible teaches that man and woman are different. Different than anything God created. We didn't evolve. We didn't come from the monkeys, right? We're the only ones to bear his image. When you see human beings, you see something, you see pieces of God. So listen, how are we different? Well, think about it. No animal can write music. No animal can design a computer, study biology. Animals have no spiritual connection. They make no ethical decisions. You'll never see a group of chickens organizing relief aid for other chickens in Haiti. It just doesn't happen. You will never see a raccoon go to a raccoon prayer meeting. They don't pray. Piglets don't walk around worrying about their financial futures. Only humankind has a hunger for God. Only humanity wants to know where they come from. Only a human wonders where they're going. Only a human wants to know their purpose in life. We are the only creatures with moral capacity. Listen, if a tiger kills a deer, we don't hold the tiger responsible. Tiger doesn't feel guilty. We don't take the tiger to court and say, "Why did you do that?" No, it's just the law of the wild. It's the law of the animal kingdom. But if a man kills another man, we do hold him responsible. There is a punishment that's dished out. We hold man and womankind to a higher standard than a tiger. Why is that if we're just animals? I propose because unlike the animals, we are moral creatures. And morality doesn't come naturally. It comes from something beyond us. Look at Romans chapter 2, look at verse 14. Paul writes about this. He says, listen, even the Gentiles, the pagans, the people who don't know God, don't serve God, even the Gentiles who do not have God's written law show that they know his law when they instinctively obey it. Even without having heard it, they demonstrate that God's law is written on their what? God has placed inside every human being this moral code, this moral law. That doesn't come from natural selection. That does not come from evolution. Morality, right and wrong, hardwired into the minds and hearts of God, even people who disobey it. And if you don't believe that, then why do human beings express guilt and regret? Why do even non-believers express guilt and regret? When a bear, when you think about what bear can't sleep at night because of the terrible guilt they had killing the deer the day before? Oh, I shouldn't have done that. No, you won't see that. What squirrel turns to the bottle to ease the regret they feel for leaving their spouse and kids for another squirrel? It doesn't happen. I believe there's a God because of morality. It's universal, even if people don't abide by it or live by it. That cannot be transposed naturally. That has to come from someone outside of nature. So friends, listen, I believe there's a God for many, 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 many reasons. And today I've just wanted to give you 3. I'm not here to win you. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm not here to twist your arm. I'm just here to give you the hope that I have. I want to give you a reason for why I think there's a God. I think there's a God because I see cause. The universe indeed had a beginning, and every beginning has to have a cause. Well, what caused God? Well, he had no beginning. Only things that have a beginning have a cause. There's an uncaused cause, an unmoved mover. I believe in God because there's a cause. I believe in God because I see design. And anytime you see design, you know that there's intelligence. Wait till we get to next week as we talk about creation evolution, as we talk about the DNA code. We talk about the intelligence that you see there. But I see design. And I believe in a God because I feel like there's a moral code that's written on the heart of every human being. And not only do I believe in God, I believe he is good. Now let me just stop right here. Everything we've unpacked today doesn't tell you what kind of God he is. What we've said is there's something out there. I think there's someone out there. So that there is a now that doesn't is he good? Is he the Christian God, the Hindu God, the Buddhist God, the Muslim God? Is he present or is he distant? Well, we'll unpack all of that later. Today was just about taking that question, is there a God? And I believe as we move forward that not only is there a God, he's good, he's loving, he's approachable, and he's knowable. And that's some of the things that we will unpack in the next weeks together. But I hope as you leave this place today, I hope you'll be able to walk away going, you know what? I think just like Paul said, God's invisible qualities, his divine nature, his eternal power have been clearly seen from what has been made so that men are without excuse. We can see it even more clearly today than Paul did 2,000 years ago. Is there a God? I believe there is. Let me pray. God, it is important for us to be able to take a look at our faith and to find evidence. Now, God, there's not going to ever come a time when we can put our arms around you and explain everything about you. If we could explain you, you would not be God. If I could wrap my arms around you, you would not be God. There are things about you that I'll never know. But God, I do believe that you've left behind evidence. We don't just have to check our brain at the door. There's faith. Man, the evolutionist has faith. Scientists have faith. God, we have faith too. And as we put evidence on the scale, I'm thankful that it tips your way. So God, help us to be men and women who think deeply, who again realize our job is not to browbeat, our job is not to prove, our job is not to convince, we're just to give an answer for the hope we have. And God, I'm also thankful that apologetics builds this wall around us. It gives us incredible hope, and it gives us incredible peace, knowing that we don't just believe in a fairy tale, but God, we believe in truth. So Lord, as we celebrate communion today, as we hold these emblems, God, that the truth is that we're all sinners. We have fallen from grace, but that you sent Jesus to atone for our sin. And that by his stripes, by his wounds, we are healed, and that we stand in your presence at peace with you, not because of our goodness or our struggle or our strife or our advancement. We stand good with you because of Jesus. And so God, as we celebrate communion today, as we think back to the cross, we kneel there thankful that Jesus came, that he died, that he rose again, that he drank the cup of God's wrath. And Lord, help us to marvel, to never grow old of that truth. I pray in Jesus' name, amen. Let's share communion together.
Well, amen. Just a few announcements before you leave this morning. Again, that Connect sign up is at the Event TV out in the lobby on your way out. And then Trunk or Treat happening October 30th. We would love if you would donate some candy in the next couple of weeks. We have white bins in the lobby right by the office windows, and you can come at any time during office hours during the week and drop those off. We'll let you in and say hey, and so you don't feel like you have to go out right now and do that. But over the next few weeks, we would love donations of candy for this awesome event where we bless. And when I say thousands, I mean thousands of people from our community that come here for Trunk or Treat every year. And it's going to be a great one again. But as you go today, man, God caused, God designed, and God gave us a moral code. And as you go, let reason strengthen your faith. Grace, peace.